Here we go. Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome into Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. The day after the 19-13 loss to the Houston Texans, we put out our Overreaction Monday video earlier today. We'll have some more thoughts on this game and really some just big picture thoughts, some things, a lot of offensive line talk that I want to get into. So lots to dive into. So thanks to everybody for being here today, and we'll get this party started here. Shout out your city. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Producer Cullen ready to rock and roll. And yes, we got our Happy Dad boots ready to go. We promised last night we would do those today. I was just I was exhausted. I was tired. It was time to go home. But we're back, Cullen, and hopefully we're on to Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough go last night. Obviously, a lot of different things to talk about on today's show. But, look, you're going to have growing pains, right? It's a rookie QB. No one, expected the Bears to go 17-0. So it's just one of those things where, there's a lot of learning moments and a lot of things to build from. Coaches talk about it all the time. If you don't learn anything from losses, why are you in the NFL? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But week 2, I feel like we'll be in better favor for the Bears.
Yeah, we will see how things go in Indy. We got Angry Bears fan in Jefferson Park. Caleb isn't the problem. He will get better. I thought he played better last night, to be frank. Obviously through the 2 picks, which you don't love. Why is Davis not cut yet? I would cut him. Doesn't seem like they're gonna.
Great question.
Maybe they're, with Ryan Bates on IR, they're worried about depth. I think you at least should bench him. Although you could argue Darnell Wright was the worst offensive lineman last night. You're not going to bench him, obviously. Pat Hunt in St. Louis, Missouri. We got Scott in Raleigh. Matt Nagy in Boomtown, Missouri. Nate Trashville, Illinois. I see what you're doing there. LaCoura. King Towers in Chicago. Bench Davis, don't cut. I mean, if you're going to bench him and he's not going to play, what's the difference? Like, if you just don't like the vibes of him, you might as well cut him. But I hear you. Irvine, California. Mesa, Arizona from J5. Shout out Wasim and Irvine. We got Bear Down from H-Town. You guessed it, Houston. Peter in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Taylor Ridge from Bryan. Cut the O-line coach. Oh, we are talking about the offensive line coach today. So buckle up, as a wise man once said. All right. What is your one-word feeling after last night? I'll shoot it to you first, Cullen. One-word feeling after the Bears lost last night. We've slept on it. It's been 17, 20 hours or so. What's the first word that comes to mind?
My first word, and I've thought about this whenever we were building the show earlier today, my first word is just kind of timid a little bit. Just not necessarily timid, but it's very just kind of lukewarm. I know that's kind of cheating a little bit, maybe the hyphen, but look, I thought despite Caleb throwing 2 interceptions last night, you could argue the 3rd interception, although it got called back by a penalty. I was more encouraged by that performance than in week 1.
I agree, yeah.
I think he was more aggressive. He felt, at least beginning of the game until the pressure really started to kind of come down on him, he had more of a command to start the game. And I thought he was hitting his spots. I thought he was getting the ball to his receivers really quickly. And until D'Amico Ryans, kind of made that adjustment that the Bears really couldn't counter to, I felt better about the offense. Now, the running game, yes, it's been a problem through 2 weeks. You got to get it going, and you got to really shore up any bit of, running in between the tackles, because you can't just have Swift bounce it outside every time. And
yeah, he's got to stop bouncing everything. You got to create running lanes. I think he's getting a little impatient because there's just nothing there. I mean, I think Caleb, one thing that stands out to me already, the quick game is already an upgrade. Like, he's already better in the quick game than Fields was. However, the downfield passing has been an issue through 2 weeks. Now, I don't think that's solely on Caleb. I think there's been a couple miscommunications. I think the constant pressure, especially last night, is probably speeding up those throws just a little bit, speeding up the footwork, and you got to keep your mind and body calm and deliver the football. So I think there's a little antsiness in some of those, but yeah, I do think he played better last night, even if the second half was a struggle. DC says typical. Angry Bears fan says dejected. Ryan says frustrated. I would say, trying to think, because I don't want to. At the end of the day, you're 1-1, and you should feel happy that you're 1-1. You easily could be 0-2. I'm I think lukewarm's a good way to put it, because it's like we've watched that Bears game 100 times where the defense gives you chance after chance, offense doesn't. I just hope that the offense will improve throughout the season. I got to hold out hope for that. Someone says 36 pressures is insanity. Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thought that comes to mind is offensive line. I mean, the offensive line has just got to play better. Period. End of story. So a lot of offensive line talk today. We will get to it here on this show. But first, we are sponsored by GameTime. We appreciate GameTime for sponsoring Chicago Bears now. If you're looking to go to a Bears game this season, like the Rams game in 2 weeks, by the way, Rams, a lot of injuries. Catch them at a good time. Get your tickets with GameTime. GameTime Picks is their new feature. It helps getting tickets and filtering through the fluff a lot easier. They've kind of made that easier for you with GameTime Picks so you can go see your favorite teams play. I love going to stadiums, so go check out GameTime right now. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase only once you create an account with GameTime today. Terms apply there. Link is in the live chat to download GameTime. Also, PrizePicks. Shout out to PrizePicks. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The September Caleb Williams deal is ongoing. Half a passing yard, you take the more, pair that with something else, you have a chance to win some money. 2 to 6 player lineups, choose more, choose less on the PrizePicks stat projections, and cash out today. Sign up at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. Code CLNS gives you a deal as well. Once you play for $5, they're going to give you an additional $50 in bonus dollars. Awesome opportunity. Plenty of sports, football, basketball, baseball, and more. prizepicks.com/CLNS. All right, comment below. What is the biggest issue with the offense? And I gave some options in our live poll. Shane Waldron, Caleb Williams, offensive line, and other. I figured the offensive line would get the most votes, Colin. I'm not sure on an option or on a poll with 4 options it would get 80%. That's a high number, and I would agree that that's my biggest concern. But I don't think any of these parties are innocent in this scenario. I think Shane Waldron's got to take a lot of accountability here. Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, I certainly could have put him as an option as well. But yeah, you guys let me know. I'll get some shout-outs in a second. But we got Adam Downing with the first Super Chat of the day. He said, offense looked better than week 1. Defensive year again, though, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, look, I think especially early in the year, you're going to have to lean on your defense. And that's okay. You've got a really good defense, so you can do that. You got to slowly get better every week. I don't think you can expect week over week to take a major jump. As bad as it felt at times last night, I thought it was better offensively against a better team. So, you know, can you go put up a respectable performance against a pretty bad Colts defense, Colin? The Colts have given up almost 500 rushing yards in 2 games. If you can't get the running game going this week, and by the way, DeForest Buckner, good chance he's out, like that's going to be alarm bells if it's more the same. Like you gotta get the ground game going a little bit this week.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know, I'm really looking towards both Bears tackles, both Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, because obviously last night against 2 of the better pass rushers I'd say in the NFL, they did not have their greatest night. I mean, we'll go over their kind of performances or whatever, but Laiatu Latu, first-round pick from Indianapolis, he's still a rookie. Like, you should really be favored in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he suffered a little deal yesterday too, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. But, yeah, I mean, Darnell Wright probably had the worst game of his career last night. I thought he really struggled. Now, Danielle Hunter's tough. Will Anderson's tough. I get it, but you got to win some of those matchups. He got beat a lot. I mean, you finally get a big chunk play on that last drive, almost in midfield, and you're like, man, there's like actually a chance here if you can string together a couple plays. And he just completely whiffs and gets Caleb killed. And 4th and 17, he has to try and come up with a miracle. But yeah, he in particular needs to play better. He's a top 10 pick. Like, you need him to be a cornerstone on this offensive line. And he had a good rookie year, and I thought he played well in week 1, but last night was a wake-up call, no doubt about it. Tito, exactly why I said I'm going to wait until week 6 to see where this team is. Too much hype. Everyone's freaking out. The line is a joke. Yeah, I'm not freaking out. I'm more just analyzing what I'm watching, right? We can only react to what we've seen. I mean, if I just didn't comment on anything until week 6, I wouldn't have a job. So, but yeah, you want to keep things in context. It's 2 games in. You're 1-1. Look, at the end of the day, if someone told you the Bears would beat the Titans and lose to the Texans to start the year, you probably, yeah, that sounds right. But you still have to analyze how things played out. And obviously, I think it's fair to say, even if you thought the offense would have growing pains, which I think we all probably thought a little bit of that would be the case with the rookie, this offense has been worse than we thought to start the year. I don't think that's egregious to say. 1 touchdown on 22 drives, that's not going to cut it in the NFL. So luckily you have an awesome defense, bailed you out in week 1, gave you chances in week 2. You're playing another young quarterback in week 3 in Anthony Richardson, who looks lost at times. So if your offense can get a little better this week, I think you have a pretty good shot to go beat the Colts on the road. So if you can do that, you'll be in a good position.
Yeah, just to add to it too, I mean, the Bears, their schedule starts off super easy. I mean, we've still got the Panthers, the Patriots. You mentioned the Colts, kind of where they're at with Anthony Richardson. Like, this is the
You're
time
catching
to
the Rams at a good time at home. I mean, Stafford's always tough, but they're beat up. I mean, you should be able to get after their offensive line.
Yes, absolutely. I think, was it Avila, No Boom, like among many others.
Like 3 or 4 starters are out. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 of those guys comes back week 4, but a few of them are on IR, so they're not even going to be eligible to come back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you still – obviously the focus – you want Caleb to continue to improve, but if you're also in the camp of let's get to the playoffs this year, I don't think that's broken after one night. Like, you're very much in the thick of things, and, go take care of business these next few weeks. You got some opportunities here. Matt Ballack says, thoughts on moving Tevin to right guard, at least have one side to run to. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I'm going to mention that as a possibility. Coming up in our first segment, we'll kind of dive into the latest news and rumors, and I'm going to dive into some things you could try on the offensive line. Again, I don't know if there's perfect solutions, but, yeah, I do like the idea of Teven Jenkins and Darnell Wright next to each other as 2 maulers, where even if there's flaws at times in pass protection there, you can just run behind those guys. Like, I do like the idea of that. All right, if you love the Bears, hit that like button. We're going to dive into today's show. Appreciate all 275 of you guys for being here. At the end of the first segment, Cullen and I will knock out a beer bong race, which we owe you guys from last night. And then at the end of the show, we will knock out a beer boot race as promised. Thank you guys again for last night. It was a lot of fun, even though the Bears went down. Okay, here's what we got coming up. The latest Bears news and rumors. I'm seeing something again from Matt Eberflus that I haven't seen in a while, but I don't like, so we'll dive into that. Live Q&A, hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions on the show. If you just kind of want to vent, if you want to get your thoughts out there, ideas on how to fix things, drop your questions in there, hashtag Bears or Super Chat, load them up. That way producer Colin can get them uploaded. And then could the Bears fire Chris Morgan? The offensive line coach, I have some thoughts on him as a whole, and I quite frankly am questioning why he's still here. Lots to get into coming up here on Chicago Bears Now. On today's episode of Bears Now by Chat Sports, I'm Harrison Graham. Press conference Flus is back. You'll know what I'm saying once we get to it here in just a moment. I don't really like it. Potential offensive line changes. I'm going to dive into a few different things you could try from a personnel standpoint based on current guys on the roster. And then Bryce Young was benched already, and I think it's only fair to revisit that trade that Ryan Poles pulled off with Carolina. Even though we're a little down on some of the personnel on the Bears, I still think that's one of those trades that could go down in Bears history. So subscribe today for free. We will continue to bring you guys daily Chicago Bears content here on Bears Now. All right, let's get into this show. Coach Speak Flus. I thought Matt Eberflus had a really good offseason, and, everybody makes it about the hair and the beard, and it is a clean look, and it's kind of a metaphor for him getting more comfortable with the media, opening up more. Well, last night after the loss and today, you're kind of seeing the old Flus in terms of how he acts at press conference, which is very tight-lipped, not willing to even slightly call anybody out, and, at times making weird comments. And I just not a big fan of that. It's like, just say what's on your mind. Obviously, don't bury a guy, but I just have not been a fan of that the first 2 years. Thought it was a good offseason, and then now I feel like we're falling back into this habit, and you're just like, why? Just say what you think. Number one, I mean, this one was ridiculous. He was asked about the 2 challenges the Bears made last night, both unsuccessful. First one had no chance. Second one had very little chance. I defended it a little bit just because it would have been a game-changing play. But when you lose the first one, you probably can't throw that second one because you're going to be out of challenges. He defended the challenge process. He says, we have a great system in place. Really? Because the first one was a little corner route right in front of Flus on the sideline where it was obvious to anyone watching live with the naked eye that the receiver got 2 feet in, yet they still challenged it. Now, obviously, they have someone upstairs feeding them information, but if you listen to Flus last night, sometimes on a critical down, if they don't have enough time, you kind of have to make a judgment call and just guess. That's a pretty shitty one to guess on because it was pretty obvious that that was a first down. And again, the second one, I'm not completely defending it, but I understand it a little more. Your offense is struggling. If you get that pick there, you're in plus 25 territory. I get it to an extent, especially if you have both challenges remaining. But let's be real. Neither had a chance. And then you go up there on the podium. Yeah, we have a great process in place. I love our team. I love the communication with it. Really? Because that first challenge is one of the worst challenges I've ever seen. I mean, they didn't even they almost didn't even review it. It was like challenge, and then like we're snapping the ball 30 seconds later because it's so obvious. I don't even think the officials had to go to the monitor. They just flashed it in the stadium in NRG and were like, oh yeah, foot down, toe drag, could have dragged it 3 times, first down Texans. I mean, what are you doing? And then to defend that, how about this, Flus? Yeah, bad challenge by me on the first one. We got to clean up when to use those challenges. No problem. Like, every coach has bad challenges, but to defend the process, I don't see how you can defend the process when the challenge has virtually no chance to work. So that was number one. Number two, and this was a comment that he made today, he was asked about his thoughts on the offensive line issues and the troubles there. And just kind of a weird comment here. As we pull it up on screen, he said, I want to get this right here. He said, quote, when you're able to run the ball, you don't get those types of pressures. Well, yes, but guess what? You couldn't run the ball. So you can't have your whole scheme be, well, we have to run the ball, otherwise we're going to give up pressure. Like, obviously it's tougher if you can't run the football, but that tells me you have a plan A and no plan B. That's not an option in the NFL. Like, throughout the week when you're game planning, hey, we want to be balanced, we want to run the football. But if we can't, here are some concepts we want to go to help Caleb out, to help the offensive line out. It seemed like they wanted to run the football, and since they couldn't, they just were screwed. That's kind of what you're telling me there. Like, it's pretty clear through 2 weeks running the football might be an issue, so you better find some shit that works. Early on, give some credit. You found some success with the quick game, but clearly at halftime, D'Amico got on the whiteboard, got in there and said, hey, sit on the underneath stuff, and we're going to pressure Caleb. We're going to blitz him a lot because they can't hold up with 4. If we bring a 5th guy, multiple guys are going to come unblocked, and the 36 individual pressures suggest that, and they're not going to have a solution. And that's exactly what happened. Waldron kept trying to go lateral, kept trying shotgun runs, and you got killed. So you've got to have different avenues, different things to go to when your plan A isn't working. That's pretty alarming to me, and just a weird answer from Matt Eberflus. Do you believe in Matt Eberflus as a head coach? Type B for believe, type D for don't. This will be the pinned comment on today's episode, so scroll down to the comment section and reply with a B or a D. All right, let's talk offensive line here in just a moment. Some potential changes, things to explore doing. If I was Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, Chris Morgan, it's got to be collaborative. It can't just be one person. They've really got to sit down hard today and tomorrow before Wednesday's practice and explore some different offensive line possibilities. I'll dive into some of my suggestions here in just a moment, but first, got to show some love to our sponsor, GameTime. If you're looking to get out of the house this fall, go to a football game, check out the Bulls once basketball season starts, the Blackhawks, or any other sporting event, concert, or comedy show, GameTime, the ticketing sponsor of this show, is the place to go. Their new feature, GameTime Picks, makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams much easier, as it'll filter out the fluff to show you the best deals on the best seats so you don't have to filter through thousands of tickets. Whether you're getting tickets for a sporting event, concert, comedy show, or anything else, GameTime has you covered in their app with views from the seats, super deals, which essentially highlight the best bang for your buck on certain events. Sometimes you get little discounts there, and last-minute tickets for the lowest price guaranteed. If you find a cheaper ticket on a different ticketing service in the same row and section, screenshot, send it to GameTime. They will lower that price for you. So download the GameTime app today. Use code CHATSPORTS. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase only right now. It's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. Link is in the comments and in the description of this video. All right, you look at the offensive line. Clearly, through 2 games, and I know in the first game, Ryan Bates and Nate Davis rotated at right guard, but that's the point's moot. It has not been good enough. I think we all know that. Even if you're not a football evaluator, it's not hard to see, hey, that number 18 guy, he's getting hit a lot. Why is that? Well, the offensive line isn't doing a very good job. So here are 5 things I would consider. Number 1, and I said it earlier, I would cut Nate Davis, but I think you got to at least bench him. And I'm not trying to make this all about Nate Davis, because I don't think it's all about Nate Davis, but I get some Claypool vibes where it's like, maybe just cutting ties, even if it's not actually improving the personnel by a ton, maybe just from a vibe standpoint, it's better. I don't know what happens behind closed door. Maybe he's super tight with everybody on the team and he's a good vibes guy. I don't know. It just felt off from the beginning, and I get the family tragedy, and that's hard, and maybe his head's not in football, and I would certainly understand if that was the case. But if it is, football's a sport. You can't be halfway in. It's too violent, it's too physical, it's too mentally draining. You're either in or you're out. It doesn't seem like he's all the way in, so I would bench Nate Davis. And then I would try Matt Pryor, whether it's at right or left guard. I'll get to that reasoning in a second, but I thought Matt Pryor in the preseason, again, preseason, it only means so much, I understand, but I thought he at least held his own. He's a 7-year vet. He's stuck around the NFL for a reason. He can play tackle, he can play guard. Am I expecting crazy high-level play from Matt Pryor? No. But part of Nate Davis's issues have been just technical things and effort at times. I would expect Matt Pryor to give me 100% effort, and that's the bare minimum, so that is something I would consider. How about moving Teven Jenkins to right guard? I think this can have a multiple effect. One, I've always felt like he was more comfortable at right guard. He's been a good left guard, albeit Week 18 last year, first 2 games this year haven't been great for him. I'm not sure what's going on. But I think he'd be a little more comfortable over there. And B, you put him next to Darnell Wright, who is coming off probably the worst game of his career, but at the minimum, those 2 guys can mash in the run game. Maybe you can get the run game going behind those guys with Swift, Herbert, etc. Now, maybe it makes the left side a little weaker, but I like the idea of Jenkins and Wright playing next to each other, so I would consider that heavily. Number 4, how about Karan Amagaji? Again, I'm not in the building. I don't know where he's at with his conditioning and just his NFL, physical status of missing 10 months and just getting ramped up in the last month and a half. But you drafted this guy for a reason. Now, ideally, you didn't want to play him this year. But if it's going to be this poor, and this is probably not one you would try this week, but if you get a couple more weeks of this play, maybe you rotate him in for a series. And I'm against the rotating crap, but if you're this bad, try some different guys. And try him at guard or tackle. He played both in college. I think long-term you'd like him to be your left tackle if Braxton Jones doesn't work out. But try him at left guard. Maybe move Tevin to right guard, play Karan at left guard. He played left guard for a year at Yale. He's powerful. We know that. So I would give him a look. If they feel like he's physically ready to go, put him out there. 3rd-round pick, man. Let's go. And then how about Doug Kramer? Do you give that a look? Now, my guess would be you wouldn't do that right now. He's an undersized guy. He's not the most physically gifted guy. But we got to give Doug Kramer credit. He was on the practice squad for a couple years, gets cut last year, signs with another team. They bring him back on a futures deal. Not only does he have a great camp of preseason, he makes the roster. Coleman Shelton's been pretty bad. He's getting driven into Caleb's lap a lot. So it's not like he's super powerful. Maybe Doug Kramer at least gives you something else in a different area. Now, I don't think against these big 330-pound defensive tackles he's going to hold up that well, but maybe he's a little bit more mobile. Maybe you can pull with him some, certainly a couple different areas. Again, I doubt that'd be one you do this week, but if another 2 weeks goes by and it's ugly, I'd give him a look because Coleman Shelton has not been very good. So this is what I would do in week 3. I would move Tevin to right guard by benching Nate Davis, and I would play Matt Pryor at left guard. I'm not making wholesale changes at once. I'm not throwing Karan Amagaji out there. I'm not benching Coleman Shelton yet. But I would bench Nate Davis and send a message there. I would move Jenkins to right side because I like that pairing over there. And then I would plug in Matt Pryor at left guard who can play all 4 spots except for center on the offensive line. That's what I would try this week. Whether or not they do that remains to be seen. Something I wonder too, Larry Borom coming back in 2 weeks. Does he factor into the mold or into the fold? He's eligible to come back. I guess we'll see if he's ready. But I don't think it can be status quo on the offensive line. I think you really have to dig deep here and try some different things. What O-line changes would you make? What would you do? Explain in the comments. Would you bench Nate Davis? Would you move Teven Jenkins? Would you sign somebody? Let us know in the comment section down below what offensive line changes you would consider. All right, let's talk Bryce Young. Some NFL news today that was pretty surprising. The Panthers are benching the number 1 pick from last year just 2 weeks into the season. 18 starts into his career, 2-16. He missed 1 game last year. Already benched. And I know it's all doom and gloom right now. I don't think we should overreact too much to the Bears, albeit there are some issues that have arisen to start this season. This trade, amidst all the frustration right now, is huge advantage Bears. Now, I know it's awkward with Darnell Wright coming off a bad game, Tyrique Stevenson, but I think we feel like at least both those players are solid, right? Like Tyrique Stevenson we know can play. He's going to get beat some, but he can create takeaways. Darnell Wright's been solid for the most part, and obviously the jury's out on Caleb, but even if he completely busts, this is still a win of a trade with everything else you got. You still get the 2nd-round pick next year. I mean, less than a season and a quarter, they're punting on Bryce Young. I mean, they've got to be in shambles in that building. Like, that is a disaster for Carolina. So, it's one of the worst trades for a team in history. Jury's out if it's one of the best trades ever for the Bears. Obviously, it's got to lead to a high level of success for years to come. That hasn't happened yet, but that's definitely a win for the Bears. There's no doubt about it. And Bryce Young, I don't know where his career goes from here. I think he's on a different roster next year fighting for a backup job, if I had to guess. And it's just crazy how quick things can change because he was the number 1 pick, 18 months ago? Not even? I mean, that's about as bad as it gets, man. So at least we're not Carolina. It can always be a lot worse, believe me. All right, thanks to everybody for tuning in to this episode of Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Hit that subscribe button. We got you guys covered on a daily basis. All right. Ramsey signed David Bakhtiari, move Braxton Jones to left guard, give Kramer a chance at center. David, when healthy, is a huge upgrade. That's the issue, when healthy. Is Bakhtiari healthy? If you told me he was healthy, I'd work him out. My second question is Braxton Jones strong enough to play guard? I think he's gotten a little stronger this offseason, but that's been my biggest question with those ideas everybody's thrown out, kicking him inside, is his first 2 years, his biggest problem was he got mauled by bull rushers, and when you play guard, you face a lot of 330-pound guys. Like, can he hold up? If you think he can, it's not the worst idea. The problem is chances are, even if Bakhtiari is healthy now, he will miss time at some point. So, it's fair to ask, but no harm in working him out. If he's healthy, let's work him out. It is time for a Bears mailbag. Use hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions on the show. While you guys are loading in questions, Cullen and I are going to knock out a beer bong race here. So hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions answered. And we'll get to a mailbag in a second. If you want to just vent, if you have thoughts on the game last night or changes you would make moving forward, this is your chance to sound off. What's up?
Just some Bears adjacent news. Because you mentioned they're playing the Rams coming up. Cooper Kupp possibly going to the IR. His injury is expected to be for an extended period of time he's going to miss.
There's a real chance you play the Rams without Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, John Johnson, Steve Avila, Joe Noteboom. I mean, guys, that is a huge opportunity. I mean, if you could beat the Colts this week, 3-1 is on, 4-1's on the table because you have the Carolina Panthers in Week 5.
Let me just read you the current injuries for the Rams: Cooper Kupp, IR possible; Puka Nacua, IR; Tyler Higbee, PUP; Joe Noteboom, IR; KT Leviston, IR; Connor McDermott, IR; Steve Avila, IR; Jonah Jackson, IR possible; Laryl Murchison, IR; Darius Williams, IR; Darian Kendrick, IR; John Johnson III, IR possible. I mean, that's incredible.
That's a bloodbath. That is a bloodbath.
Jesus. Always could be worse. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. And look, sometimes you catch a break with the schedule. You play the Rams in November when some of those guys are back, it's probably a lot tougher. You get them in 2 weeks. If you can find a little mojo offensively this week, this Colts game is pretty big. If you can win this game on the road, you're staring 4-1 down the barrel just because the Rams are so thin. And I know Carolina has switched to Andy Dalton. You should still beat Andy Dalton at home. No, sorry. We'll do the.
I was about to say, we're doing that now.
Nah, we'll do the beer bongs now, and then we'll get to the boots at the end of the show. All right, C for Cullen, H for Harrison. These are from last night. Appreciate everybody who tuned in. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your mailbags questions in. 3, 2, 1, go. Just the tank. Calling the tank. It's interesting super chat. We'll actually kick off the mailbag with that one. Sitch Lover, we'll get to your super chat early on in the mailbag, so stay tuned. Yeah, we can go that, and then we can just do that next one. That works. Oh, man. All right. Get your questions in. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat. Matt Bellick, that's a good question. We'll get into that one. But, yeah, that definitely concerned me last night. Here we go. Let's dive into this mailbag. I'm Harrison Graham. Let's get to a Bears Now mailbag. We got a Super Chat from Sitch Lover. Appreciate the 5. He says, Caleb got his head beat in. No QB makes every throw. Dominic Puny, Niners right guard. 3 picks after Karan Amagaji. Looks like Poles has favorites despite performance. I don't know how much input Poles has on who's actually starting. Obviously, he has input on the 53-man roster, and I'm sure they bounce ideas off each other on who's going to play and who isn't. I will say this. Puny looks like a stud in San Francisco, and it's a similar scheme, so you would have liked to have a guy like that, no doubt about it. But, yeah, that's why I'm intrigued by Amagaji. If he's healthy and ready to go, if this poor O-line play continues, you might want to give him a look because what you're getting right now is not very productive. So appreciate the super chat, Sitch Lover. For the Bears, is Shane Waldron, the offensive line, or Caleb Williams the biggest reason for offensive struggles early on? If I had to rank it, I would go O-line 1, Waldron 2, Caleb 3, but I think it's a combination. It all works together. But when you get pressured on half your dropbacks and 36 individual pressures from the Texans on 44 dropbacks, that just makes it really tough. You could have Waldron 1 because he's got to figure out solutions, play heavier personnel. We said it all week. Used more 12 and 13. They didn't seem to do that. Caleb missed some throws downfield. Obviously, he forced a couple that got picked off as well. He certainly hasn't been perfect or even good, although I think he played better this week. I think the answer is all of it, but a rookie quarterback in his second start getting sacked 7 times, and I don't feel like any of the 7 were coverage sacks, that makes it tough, man. That makes it really, really tough. So the offensive line has really got to improve. What is the biggest issue with the Bears offense through 2 games? If you had to say one area, what is the biggest issue? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's Chris Morgan, the O-line coach. Maybe it's DeAndre Swift. I don't think Swift's been great, but I also don't think he's had that many great opportunities. The offense as a whole is just not working right now. Matt Bellick, thoughts on moving Tevin to right guard, at least have one side to run to? Yeah, I like the idea of pairing him with Darnell Wright. They're both maulers in the run game. Both can be hit and miss in pass protection, but at least you'd feel better about running the football in that direction. The Bears actually ran the ball a little more effectively to the right than to the left. I think they had like 35 yards on 10 carries to the right with their running backs, and I think they had like 1 or 2 yards to the left. You got to stop running to the left out of shotgun. It's just not working. But I think Tevin looked better at right guard when he played that position too. So yeah, I would consider that. Hayden Lopatko, do you think the Bears will make any moves during the trade deadline? I mean, if history says so, then yes, but it's hard to know what that would be. I keep getting DMs. You guys are commenting, go trade for an offensive lineman. Well, teams don't trade good offensive linemen. You know why? Because it's hard to find them. It just doesn't happen. I know the Ezra Cleveland trade a couple years ago. That's one that kind of stands out. But if you think you're getting even a Pro Bowl level player at the trade deadline on the offensive line, that's probably unrealistic. Now, could you find a starter? Potentially. Yeah, you're going to have to explore all your options there if this level of play continues up front. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's Bears Mailbag video. Football is back, and so is daily fantasy sports. The way PrizePicks works is simple. You choose more or less on the stat projections they provide for players, and you set lineups of 2 to 6 players. It's very easy. If you hit on all your picks, you make money. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get signed up today. That gets you a $50 bonus once you place an initial $5 entry. Doesn't matter if you win it. You're going to get that $50 bonus regardless to help build up your account there. The Caleb Williams deal continues throughout September, half a passing yard, so you take more on that. And then I'm going less on Anthony Richardson passing yards. The Bears defense is dialed in. I know Stroud got him a little bit, but Richardson is not built to slice and dice you. You might give up a couple big completions, but I like the less in that 185.5 in that number. So 10 to win 30 here for me on this 2-player entry. Again, if you just play for $5, you're going to get a $50 bonus at prizepicks.com/CLNS with the code CLNS. So get signed up today and start making your plays. It's a lot of fun. PrizePicks. Choose more, choose less. It's PrizePicks. Our daily basis with the Super Appreciates. It's been a while. Welcome back. Do you think this is Tevin's last year with the Bears? He hasn't been the same since the last Green Bay game and rarely stays healthy. Yeah, I mean, if he continues to play like this, he probably won't be back. Now, I don't think he's been a disaster, but he looks like a player who's regressed a little bit. Now, I don't know if that's scheme. I don't know if he's had some tough matchups. I don't know if he's just regressed. It could be a million things. Offensive line play requires a lot of communication, continuity, quick decisions. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, I don't think you're getting high enough level play right now where you'd consider giving him a big extension. He's got to turn it around. Paleo, appreciate the 10, brother. He says, I was at Week 1 Bears-Titans and was at Bears-Texans. Oh, you were at both. Nice. O-line's a joke. Biggest issue in my eyes. Poles needs to build this O-line better. Maybe fire Morgan, too. If you're watching live, we're going to get to Chris Morgan here in a little bit, so stay tuned. But, yeah, I mean, look, it's fair to criticize Poles on the offensive line. Now, he tried with Nate Davis. 3 years and $30 million for a well above average starting guard coming from the Titans. Like, that's a real contract for a player who at the time was a well above an average and at times a really good player for the Titans. He was blowing people off the ball, pulling in the run game. I will say the one really good rep he had last night was when they pulled him on that goal line run and cleared out space for Herbert. Maybe you got to get him on the move more as an athlete up front. I'm not sure. But, yeah, he's really been an issue since they've signed him. It just has not worked out. But, yeah, they've been cheap at center. They drafted Darnell Wright, but, your patchwork in center. You keep trying to rely on Nate Davis. You've moved Teven Jenkins around a bunch. I like Braxton Jones, but, he's not a high-level starter. He's kind of just a middle of the gap type of guy. So I'm with you. The criticisms of not investing more in the offensive line, I think are completely valid. Subscribe and join us every Monday and Thursday. That is when we answer these mailbag questions here on Chicago Bears Now. So hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and if you want to be a part of these mailbag episodes, be sure to do that. Marcus, why not at least try a vet like Bakhtiari? I think sometimes you have to realize that guys are still unsigned for a reason. I'm with you in principle, like work the guy out. Bring him into your building. See what the medical situation is. Like, there's no harm in that. Maybe he doesn't want to work out. Maybe he's like, I've got a decade on tape, sign me or don't. Or maybe he wants $10 million. There could be a million reasons, but I'm with you, Marcus. What you can't do is keep doing what you're doing and expecting it to just change just because. Now, am I expecting major wholesale changes before the Colts game? I'm not. I could see one change. Maybe they bench Nate Davis. Maybe they make one move on the offensive line that they change this week. But, yeah, you certainly can't go 4, 5, 6 weeks of the same shit, and it's just not getting better. It just can't happen. Jaden Rowley, how does Chris Morgan still have a job? Stay tuned if you're watching live. It's a fair question. He was the only offensive coach. Actually, I think they brought back Jim Dre as well, the tight ends coach. So 2 offensive coaches survived the purge of the offensive staff. But regardless, what is special about Chris Morgan? Like, I'm going to dive into it on a full episode here. If you're watching this later in the week, that episode may already be out, so check it out on the channel, subscribe, content tab. But, yeah, it's questionable at best, Jaden. Who you got? Type CHI for the Bears, IND for the Colts. Huge game. Big game for both. Colts are desperate at 0-2. Bears at 1-1. Catching a young quarterback at the right time. Hopefully the defense has a field day and the offense plays better against a not very good defense. So it's on the road. Won't be easy, but certainly an opportunity for Chicago. Owen Harris, moving the pocket is preseason only. Blitz counter. Okay, but like a lot of teams move the pocket. The Bears just can't do it. Like, I get it. If they call the right blitz at the right time on a bootleg, then yeah, that's part of the X's and O's of football, the chess game. Like, defenses call certain plays at certain times. Sometimes they get burned, sometimes they don't. But I do think getting Caleb Williams on the move more makes sense. I do think that, and I don't think they've tried it enough. We'll see if they do moving forward, but I would like to get more under center action going, running the football, play actions under center, boots from under center. Now, maybe Caleb's not comfortable under center yet. Maybe that's why they're limiting those reps. I don't know, but I would try to incorporate more of that into the offense. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at HGramNFL. We'll continue the conversation over there. DMs are open, so fire away. It's at HGramNFL on Twitter. All right, get some shout-outs here. Bears, Colts, who you got?
Very winnable game.
Very winnable. I mean, it's on the road, so I think the Bears are – let's see if we got an early spread on this one. I would guess, without looking – I'm going to guess Colts -3. I think they'll be favored at home. Let's see. Looks like – Colts -2. So that's Vegas kind of telling you it's a pick 'em. Like, home team usually gets 2 to 3 points. So, I mean, Anthony Richardson, he'll come up with some big plays. He's done 4 picks in 2 games, some ugly ones too. This defense typically capitalizes on bad throws. If you can pick him off a couple times, I like your chances to win that game. And I think you just got to view this week by week at this point. Like, let's slowly get better offensively and try to win some of these games with defense. I know it's not fun. I know that's all Bears football ever seemingly is, but if you're trying to win right now, that's how you're going to have to do it. Like, you gotta win games with defense, and hopefully Caleb improves a little bit each week. Hopefully the offensive line plays a little better. Hopefully Shane Waldron settles in a little bit. Colts this week, Rams the week after. They are beat to shit like we talked about earlier. Panthers week 5, Jags week 6, then the bye week. I mean, you could get to the bye week at 4-2 or 3-3 at worst and still not feel like you've played great. So you've got opportunities here. You really do.
Yeah, very winnable games coming up. I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, this is kind of make or break for. I mean, if you want to be a playoff team, if you want to live up to kind of the expectations that we had in the preseason,
like if you're 2-4, you're cooked.
Oh, you're so cooked because the schedule's only getting harder as the season wears
on.
The
Vikings are good.
Yeah, they are.
Like, you're probably happy with the split against them at this point. Let's be honest. The Lions and Packers are going to be tough. You have to go to San Francisco. Seattle's coming to town. They're 2-0. Like, you got hard games later in the year. You know, you got Washington out of the bye week as well, Colin. Like, this is the time to stack some wins. And, you know, you got to find a way to balance developing Caleb, bringing him along, but still trying to find a way to win these games. Like, you gotta start winning some of these games.
Yeah, and I mean, the defense played phenomenal last
I
week.
expect them to play well.
I do.
I just do.
But at the end of the day, like, if you keep forcing them to having to play up to that level week after week after week, it wears on them.
Yeah, and eventually they're probably going to have a bad game. So, you know, you hope that's against the team you're not expected to beat, quite frankly. Like, you'd rather that happen against, the Niners. Like, give up 35 and just, who cares? We're not going to win this game anyway. But what you don't want is next week Anthony Richardson pops off on your defense and your offense isn't ready to get into a shootout yet. So early on in the year, the defense is going to have to be the leading unit. It's pretty clear that's the case. So, you know, we'll see if it works out. Paleo with the 5 says, Bears should have signed Connor Williams, in my opinion. Screw the injury history. 1-year deal couldn't have hurt. I said it all offseason. Bring him in. At least check out his medicals. They liked the idea of Ryan Bates and Coleman Shelton. Like, I disagreed with it. I tried. How many times did we talk about Connor Williams this offseason?
Multiple.
It had to be double-digit times.
Him and Yannick Ngakoue were
And, hey, you clearly don't need Jan. The defensive line's good, man. Mm-hmm. It's pretty solid. Dexter has taken the next step. He has 2 sacks in 2 games. Mm-hmm. Sweat doesn't have a sack yet, but he's generating a lot of pressure. Yeah. He's setting the edge in the run. I mean, they shut the run game down last night. Joe Mixon rushed for $160 in week 1. He was a total non-factor last night. Yeah. So
real ones know this reference. I didn't want to mention it because it's early, but that's a very Madden thing right there for Montez Sweat. Hadn't
no
seen
sacks.
Him. No sacks. We didn't get a sack until like 2 or 3 weeks left in the Madden season.
He's having an impact, though.
He is, though. Yeah.
He's having an impact.
We've definitely, I mean, he was able to, wasn't it he?
He had that tipped ball on that screen that if Billings is able to find it, it could have been an interception.
Didn't he draw the penalty on Titus Howard late in the game?
Yep.
Whenever.
I mean, he's got 7 pressures in 2 games. So, like,
it's not.
I'm not acting like he's been awesome, but, like, he's playing fine. And I expect him to get stronger as the year went on. He was banged up some in training camp.
Jokes only, but I just thought it was funny.
No, yeah, it's like week 8. See, is this the week he gets a sack? Oh, man. All right, one more segment to go, and then we will knock out the beer boots on the way out. Going to be blunt here. Should Chris Morgan get fired? Let's talk about it next. Should Bears offensive line coach and run game coordinator Chris Morgan get fired? Very simple question. I want to hear from you guys on Chicago Bears Now. And if you think he should get fired, hit the thumbs up icon. Because we're going to talk about this on today's show. What the hell is Chris Morgan doing here? Is he any good? We explore all of it. And again, if you think he should get fired, hit that like button. My name is Harrison Graham. You are watching Chicago Bears Now. Bears offensive line coach Chris Morgan, year 3 on this staff. Is it time to just fire him? Because this offensive line continues to be an absolute disaster, and I'm going to kind of outline it through the show. I really don't know what his impact has been up to this point, and he's been on this staff for 3 years. It's very puzzling to me. You look at week 2, and again, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, we probably underestimated how good those guys were. I mean, obviously we knew they were good, but you got your ass beat. The biggest concern was I thought the interior would hold up better in this matchup, and Tevin's overall grade was decent at 72.7, but he struggled in pass pro in particular. These PFF grades, regardless of their grades or whatever, if you just watch the game, This offensive line had major issues. It gave up 36 individual pressures. Caleb was pressured by at least one Texans player, if not multiple on several occasions, on 23 of 48 dropbacks. It seems like some of these guys have regressed. Like Tevin hasn't played as well this year. Darnell Wright just had one of the worst games of his career, albeit he played good in week 1. Braxton Jones has been up and down. If nothing else, he was at least somewhat steady the first couple of years of his career. I don't know if Nate Davis has regressed from last year to this year, but from Tennessee to Chicago, he's clearly regressed. And to me, yes, the players have to hold accountability, but I do just wonder, this Chris Morgan guy, does he hold any blame here? Because to me, if guys get worse and make mental mistakes and just miss assignments, that feels like coaching a little bit. And let's start there. A lot of missed assignments. The next stunt your center and right guard pick up will be the first. I mean, these teams are running basic stunts on you, and you're not communicating and passing off block. It's just a disaster. It's like Division II stuff, high school, like where, delayed blitzes, they're crossing over the defensive tackles, like just kind of like these basic stunts that team run, and you hope to crack one or two throughout the course of a game. You're giving up a ton of these week in and week out. This is the NFL, man. Like, even if certain players struggle to like hold blocks, the mental side of it should be pretty much automatic in the NFL. Like that's a bare minimum at this level. And so for that to be a just constant issue, play after play after play, week after week, that's pretty concerning up to this point. Poor communication kind of dives back into that first one. Coleman Shelton at center has not held up well. There's been a lot of blown assignments, double and triple teaming one guy and letting another guy come unblocked. To me, that's a combination of coaching, the teaching that these guys are getting. Teven Jenkins mentioned he was asked after the game the other night, like, what's the issue with the offensive line? And he basically said, all we can do is go out there and execute what's being called. That felt like a little jab, like, hey, maybe what's being called isn't great. So Shane Waldron, Chris Morgan, a little hot seat action there from Teven Jenkins, I'm not sure. But when you're missing this many assignments, to me, that points to the communication not being very good. Number 3, even when things line up naturally, you're just getting beat a lot. Now, it's hard to blame Chris Morgan on that entirely, but the offensive line coach needs to help players improve. How many of these guys have improved under Chris Morgan? Does Darnell Wright look like a better player this year than last year? I don't think he's looked way worse. I thought in week 1 he was good. Week 2 he was terrible. So it's like, okay, that's kind of a wash. He was up and down as a rookie too, but had some positive signs. But does he look like a guy who's taken a big jump, which is what you would want to see in year 2? I don't see it. Does Braxton Jones look like a guy that's taken major steps throughout his career? I think he's gotten slightly better at times. He's become a serviceable starter, but it's not like he's taken off or anything. Nate Davis has gone the other way. Now, I think he's got to hold a lot of responsibility there. But you're not seeing guys improve a lot. And that's a concern to me because coaches, especially position coaches, their job is to help you maximize your abilities. And I don't feel like that's happening with this offensive line. And we'll have an example in a minute of a player who used to be here as an offensive lineman and struggled, go somewhere else, instantly better. And I think you guys are going to be pretty alarmed by who that player is. How concerned are you with the Bears O-line right now? 10 being you couldn't be more concerned. It's alarm bells. 1 being not at all, Harrison, you're overreacting. I'm at a 10. Like, usually when we do these scale of 1 to 10s, I'm between like a 3 and an 8 on most things. I'm at a 10. I am deeply concerned about the offensive line, considering all 5 starters are struggling. So here's kind of my big question. Why were the Bears so adamant about keeping Chris Morgan when they fired the rest of the offensive staff? I think Jim Dre's back too, the tight ends coach. I'd have to double check. But they axed Luke Getsy and the entire staff. But Chris Morgan is good enough to keep around? Did I miss something the last 2 years? Was this offensive line like better than expected? I think at times last year it was okay, especially as a run blocking unit. But what am I missing here? Like, when you got an offensive staff, you got it. You don't halfway measure it. Like, I can't imagine Shane Waldron was that happy when he took this job and he was like, oh, by the way, you have to keep this offensive line coach. And on top of that, we're going to promote him to be our run game coordinator. Now, Shane took the job, so clearly he doesn't have a huge issue with it, and I'm not impressed with him so far, so I'm clearly not trying to absolve him of any of this. But it's just weird. When you make wholesale changes like that, you don't typically keep a position coach and promote him. Like that is bizarre to say the least. So I got a lot of thoughts, more things on this when it comes to Chris Morgan and the offensive line, but to me, he's got to be on the hot seat based on what we've seen so far this year. Today's show is sponsored by GameTime. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you're looking to go to a Bears game this year, no better place to do it than with GameTime. Football season is back, and it's time to get off the couch and go watch your favorite teams play. I love checking out my favorite teams in live stadiums, arenas, my favorite bands and performers in concert venues, theaters, etc. And with their new feature, GameTime Picks, it makes getting tickets to your favorite teams and events much easier. It'll filter out the fluff of all the kind of 1,000 of random tickets. They're going to kind of show you the best ones available, best bang for your buck, all that stuff. So it makes surfing their app a lot easier. Whether you're getting tickets for a sporting event, concert, comedy show, or anything else, GameTime has you covered with views from the seats, super deals, which are the best bang for your buck. Sometimes you get some discounts on certain tickets. And again, last-minute tickets for the lowest prices guaranteed. So here's what I want you to do. Download the GameTime app today. Create an account, use code CHATSPORTS, it's all one word, CHATSPORTS, to get $20 off your first purchase only right now. That's code CHATSPORTS, $20 off, terms apply. Download GameTime today. What time is it? It's game time. You look at the Bears' rushing attack this year, right? Last 2 years, the Bears can run the ball. Well, it was a little skewed because Justin Fields was an elite running quarterback. In 22, the running backs were pretty effective last year. I think the Bears were actually 22nd in rushing with their running back, so it's not like it was great last year. But it wasn't as bad as this. You're 28th in total yards and obviously yards per game. 29th in yards per carry at 3.5. DeAndre Swift, who you spent real money on, 3 years, $24 million. He's 55th in the NFL in rushing with 48 yards. And his 2.0 average among qualified runners has to be like dead last. I'd be shocked if anyone was less, especially with 20-plus carries. Caleb Williams has actually kind of made the rushing attack look better than it actually is because he's got 59 yards on 10 carries. So again, what does Chris Morgan do? The offensive line is terrible. They can't run the football. So you can't protect in the pass game very consistently. You can't run the ball and create running lanes. Why is Chris Morgan just this super valued coaching member of this staff? And why did he stay despite you gutting the rest of the offensive staff? And you promoted him to your run game coordinator. Like, if I'm the Bears, you know one thing I'm trying to do? I'm giving Thomas Brown more responsibilities in the run game planning. He's the pass game coordinator. I'm getting him more involved in the run game. Running background. He's been a run game coordinator before. I think you got to get him more involved because what has Chris Morgan's impact been so far? They can't run the ball and they can't protect. Like, it's just not working. It's not working. And how about this? This will make your skin crawl. Lucas Patrick is one of the highest graded offensive linemen by PFF through 2 weeks. Now, it's 2 weeks, small sample size. The Saints have gotten up big on these teams, so maybe it's skewed a little bit. 92.6 overall, well above average as a pass blocker, elite run blocking. He's given up one pressure through 2 games. Like Lucas Patrick, the guy we couldn't wait to get out of town. He leaves Chris Morgan and is instantly a whole lot better. Cody Whitehair, we thought he was completely washed, right? And granted, his overall grades haven't been that good through 2 games. 87 pass block grade against the Ravens. Last time I checked, Justin Matabike is pretty good on the interior for Baltimore. Pretty damn good grade. Like, how is this possible? Like, these guys who look like cooked products, you think they have to retire, they go elsewhere. Not only do they start, they're better. Like, what is going on? Why is Chris Morgan viewed in this light? Am I missing something here? Like, please help me out in the comments if there's something that you guys are seeing that I'm not. Because was the Bears' offensive line good the last 2 years? Like, I thought at times last year they were decent. But, like, you don't keep decent just because you kind of like the guy. If you're going to fire your offensive staff, then fire your offensive staff. I just, these half measures, man, like, it's just not effective. And then you promote the guy. Oh, just unbelievable. Subscribe to Bears Now if you want these authentic takes, my reaction to things. We got you covered. We crossed 101,000 subs, trying to get to 102,000. Daily content here. Lock us in. So what's next? Well, you got to do something to find a way to get the running game going. And you just got to eliminate the basic stuff, the basic mistakes. Pick up a stunt every once in a while. Pass off blocks. Like, this is basic stuff. If you're going to lose one-on-one sometimes, hey, that's the NFL. But when free rushers are coming through untouched and cracking your number one overall pick, $25 million signing bonus quarterback, that ain't cool with me. You've got to get that cleaned up. You've got to get that figured out because you're going to kill this kid's confidence. We saw it with Justin Fields. We saw it with Mitchell Trubisky. I think this kid's better than those players as prospects. I think he can handle it. But if he's getting cracked like this week in and week out, it's going to be a long year. And none of us want that for the Chicago Bears. All right, appreciate everybody for making it to the end of the video. If you did, that makes you a real one. Follow me on Instagram at HGramNFL. DMs are wide open, and we'll see you guys soon. Bear down. How concerned are you with the offensive line? Sam Must for two. Good point. Last year in Baltimore in fill-in duty, he held his own.
Yeah.
He held his own. Someone says Komet missed a huge block too. That scheme to me, though, Colin, he's lined up at the right tight end spot, and on the snap, he has to come across the formation, and he's supposed to, like, shield off Will Anderson. That is an unreasonable ask. And someone tweeted me and was like, well, it's a quick play. Caleb's going to get the ball. You watch the play. If he throws either slant, it's going to get picked off, or if you're lucky, knocked away. What's he supposed to do? I guess he could dirt it at the guy's feet, but, like, I mean, that is, I don't care what the play call is, that's moronic. You cannot have a play. It's one thing, Colin, if he's lined up outside of the left tackle, it's like, chip him for like a second.
Right.
He has to come across the formation in real time and beat him to the point of attack to try and not get your quarterback cracked. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane scheme.
And think about what you just said, too. D'Amico Ryans made the adjustment in the second half to take away the quick game. So that play in and of itself, that late into the game, when you realize the adjustments have been made, I mean, it was already kind of just in bad
And if
process.
you're gonna go quick game at that point in the game, I think you got to go max protect. Like, I know Mercedes Lewis comes in, 20-year vet, and has a false start. But if your quarterback's getting cracked time and time again, his role on this team is to be an extra lineman. Really. That's what his role is. Give him 25 snaps. Like, if he's playing 5 to 10 snaps a game, what's the point? Like, I just don't get some of these decisions.
I don't either. I would have loved, I mean, I said it last night whenever it was live, I would have loved to get him on the move. The fact that he was a sitting target basically on that play is
Crazy.
just, it's like, again, if it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you roll him out to the right and then you have Komet kind of
backside seal, that's different
Right.
because he can take more of a south angle and you've got a better chance of getting there. And even if you don't, well, Anderson's got to chase him across the field. It's just bad scheme, dude. Like, that play was like, oh, that's something Getsy would have done. That's what that really reminded me of, and that is not a thought I want to have. All right, you want to do this beer boot? This Happy Dad boot? Do 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 do. All right.
I know it's different whenever, we're sitting there watching the game, we're not like in it, it's not like as distracting and everything. If you as an offensive coordinator have to answer for a play call, any play call you send in, you should have an answer for it. And I would be very curious to know what Shane Walter's thought process was.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's his? I mean, I'm sure like Cole Kmet would sit there and say, "Yeah, I could have done better there," but like, how about you don't put him in that position? Like, that's a tough block for anybody, much less a good but not great blocking tight end against a top 20 pass rusher in the NFL, maybe top 10 by the time we get to the end of this season. Ugh, that was bad, man. All right, we're going to get out of here, but we owe you guys a beer boot race. We got the Happy Dads flowing. Cheers. All right. Thanks to everybody who tuned in last night and today. 3, 2, 1, go! Shout out to y'all Bears fans. Excuse me.
Not my best boot, but ugh.
Oh, man.
Happens.
It happens. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah, he always smokes me, Fencer. What can I say? Thank you guys for rocking and rolling with us, as always. We'll have videos up on the channel tomorrow, so tune in for that. We'll be live again on Thursday for our next live show, 4 o'clock Central Time, so subscribe and hit those notifications. Until tomorrow, bear down.